Yep. Okay. We all set?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming out this morning. My name is James Faluzak, and I am a survivor of clergy sexual abuse. I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, but my family is from New York State, and my dad's family is all from the Albany and Schenectady area. I was also a priest for 18 years before I left ministry to become a whistleblower before the 40th grand jury in Pennsylvania. And now I work as a researcher of clergy sex abuse cases and also as an advocate for victims. To my right is Danielle George, and she is a partner in the law firm of Phillips and Palicelli in Manhattan and representing clergy abuse victims all over the country. We're here today principally on behalf of our client who was allegedly abused by Father LaRue when our client was a minor child. And we also, in addition to making everyone aware of the tragedy of that experience and that trauma for our client, we want to really raise the issue, since Father LaRue is deceased. We also want to point to those who were complicit in our client's abuse. So obviously the Diocese of Albany, and but principally we have some very serious concerns about Bishop Howard Hubbard, who, when our client was being abused, after he was abused, he went to Bishop Hubbard seeking help because of, you can imagine, this unspeakable horror that our client went through, perpetrated by LaRue. He expected Howard Hubbard to help him. And even though Bishop Hubbard was simply just out of high school and early in the seminary, perhaps, he carried this knowledge of Father LaRue into his ministry as a bishop and let Father LaRue function for many years. The abuse of our client really began in a certain way at a Jesuit retreat house that we believe is now closed, but our client worked there, was an employee as a child, and had residence there at least part of the time. And in this retreat house, they had a room full of these kids that worked at the center, and for whatever reason, the Jesuits allowed or made it possible for Father LaRue to enter the bed chambers of these children. And this is, I just don't understand in what world the Jesuits would have ever allowed, in a retreat center of all places, a future priest, not even a priest yet, this LaRue went into these boys' bedroom and began grooming our client. And once he was ordained, Father LaRue then, we allege, abused our client. We believe that the Jesuit community is on the hook for an unsafe environment. And in addition to that, because we're talking about Bishop Hubbard in a time period when he was a seminarian, and Father LaRue as a seminarian and then as a new priest, we are bringing a case against also Mater Christi Seminary, because they obviously did not do their job in providing a safe environment or the safe formation and training for a future priest. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. I'm Danielle George. I'm a partner at the law firm of Phillips and Palicelli. I have a brief statement, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. At Phillips and Palicelli, we represent over 150 victims of childhood sexual assault here in New York State and nationwide. And what we've learned, having interviewed these brave people, is that the trauma that results from these childhood assaults torments them and haunts them for decades to come, sometimes on a daily basis. And in particular in this case, I think it's important to when our client, as a teenager, was able to muster up the courage to report Father LaRue's sexual assault to a priest, Bishop Hubbard. Bishop Hubbard at that moment had an opportunity to engage in compassion, to offer comfort to our client, to offer an investigation to our client, to help our client understand what happened to him, and to help him get closure at that time. But Bishop Hubbard didn't do that. Instead, he told our client to just forget it. And what is apparent is that Bishop Hubbard's callous indifference to the cries for help of an innocent, vulnerable victim of sexual assault didn't just make Father LaRue's abuse worse, which it did, but it caused its own damage, its own injuries. Imagine a child crying out for help and being told to just forget it. That's why we're here today. This behavior and this cover-up, not just in our case, but in many other cases, isn't an afterthought. The cover-up is its own tort, its own injury, and that's why we're here today. So I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Just one more thing I also want to say. This problem in the Catholic Church is historical, and it is systemic. Part of the reason we have this problem is because the Catholic Church has a set of procedures that are still in place in spite of all of the wonderful things that Pope Francis has said in the last year or so. There are all kinds of regimens for secrecy and secret internal investigations, pontifical secrets, confessional secrets, investigatory secrets that you'll never find out. I have spoken to Bishop Scharfenberger on 2 occasions, not about this matter, just generally. And I think that he is a sincere man. I think he's trying to be sincere. That is at least the way he styles himself. But this list of abusers in the Albany diocese, it is just so incomplete in leaving out all kinds of information about where and when and the frequency of abuse and things like that. And so Bishop Scharfenberger himself still needs to come clean. But when you have a seminarian, a new priest, and somebody who was aware of the abuse who ends up becoming a bishop, you're talking about a man, Hubbard, who was principally involved in the dynamic of our client's abuse and not the abuse itself. But then, when I say this is an institutional matter, he carried that knowledge into his ministry as the bishop when he became the principal actor in this matter. And we would like to also say at this time that if there are any other victims of Father LaRue, if there are any other victims that had any this type of experience, for example, with Bishop Hubbard or any other priests in the diocese, we will advocate for you. I will help research your case. The law firms of Phillips and Palicelli will do, I think, a better job than anybody in terms of compassion and in terms of thoroughness to get to the bottom of this and to walk with any victim who would come forward. With that, we'll take your questions.
What do you make? Bishop Hubbard, came out last week and said no one during that period ever came to him and reported any claims of sexual abuse. What do you make of his statement?
Well, we obviously believe that that's not true. We would not be making the effort to stand here today. We wouldn't be making the effort to accompany our victim, our client victim, through this tragedy if what he went through, if we didn't believe it wasn't real. I mean, so in that sense, I believe Bishop Hubbard is not telling the truth.
Yeah, one of the things, just to add to that, one of the things that has been striking to us is the level of detail that our clients can remember. And that goes as a testament both to their credibility as well as the extent of the trauma. It's known that the worse a trauma is, the more detail a client or a victim will remember. And so for our client to have remembered so specifically where he went, that he told Bishop Hubbard, who at the time was known in the community as a street priest, as someone who was ministering to the community at that time, is really a powerful fact. And we're very confident that the timeline, I know that Bishop Hubbard made a statement, we're not worried about that. The timeline is very consistent. So
When was the timeline? When did this happen?
this all happened late 50s, early 60s. So, the timeline will become more specific as discovery unfolds in the case, but we have no doubt that everything is as it should be and is consistent with our claim.
And your client is a male, and he was what age was he at the time, roughly?
He was 16 years old at the time of the assault.
What sort of systematic changes do you think need to be made within the church to bring down?
There are procedures in canon law that require anytime there's an internal church tribunal, even if a couple divorces and they want an annulment, they have to go to the church tribunal for the settlement of that type of case. And any kind of tribunal case, any matter that is investigated and judged by the church is governed by a level of secrecy that if you were to violate that secrecy, it would be like violating the seal of confession. It would result in automatic excommunication. That procedure has not changed under Pope Francis. Furthermore, and we even heard this just in the last couple of days from the Archbishop of Westminster in England, Catholic Archbishop Cardinal Nichols, who said basically the same thing, that he is not going to, as a cardinal, Cardinal Dolan in New York, for example, they swear a whole different oath when they become cardinals, that to the point of shedding their blood, they will prevent any scandal. They would never communicate any type of detail that would bring shame to the church, to the point of shedding their blood. These are the procedures that are still in place, aside from this metropolitan model Vos Estis talked about by Pope Francis. This, in spite of the programs and all of the paper hanging that Bishop Scharfenberger has done. These bishops in New York State are going to Rome this weekend to meet with the Pope for an annual a type of checkup. And we'd like to see, Bishop Hubbard they need to take away his title of Bishop Emeritus. He is still a respected member of this community, even if he himself has chosen to withdraw. That hasn't been imposed on him because of these matters. It was his choice. Well, we want to see Pope Francis, when Bishop Scharfenberger comes back from Rome in a week or so, tell us, give us the results of his investigation, this investigation of Bishop Hubbard. When are we going to see the results? Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you for coming
Thank
today.
you so very
We appreciate
much.
it.
No, it's cool.
Do you need
Thanks,
B-roll
you guys.
done? What's that? Do you need B-roll? Yeah.
Not sure.
Okay.